Your friend picks you up, you break each other's balls, get into a fight because of some kindergarten beef, go to work, mop the floors, take the train back home, and start up all over again. Not a bad life. It might even be an okay life. And that's all you can ask for. Because at the end of the day, it's about saying fuck you to the people who fucked you. But what if you met someone who could change everything? Would you turn your back on them and go to the baseball game? Or would you go see about that girl? This is Goodwill Hunting.
All right.
Cool, man. How you doing? What's up? What's going on?
Not much, man. How are you?
I'm good. So before we get into the show and before we, get into how this movie changed us, let me introduce this, and then I have a new segment that I want to talk about. So welcome to Movies That Changed Us. I'm Altaf.
And I'm Chris.
And if you're listening to this on Spotify or wherever you listen to our podcasts, know that you can also watch us on YouTube at Movies That Changed Us.
And we also got a Patreon if anyone likes the show and wants to support it. We do weekly commentary tracks in there. And this go around, we are doing the Toy Story trilogy. And our commentary tracks are basically where we record ourselves watching the movie, and then you can listen to it and watch along with us and hear our thoughts on it and hang out while the movie's playing.
Yeah, it's exciting. People voted for the Toy Story franchise, so I'm excited. Okay, so I wanted to start a new segment that I texted you about probably 3 hours before we shot this episode because I thought it would be an interesting precursor to the main conversation. The show is a lot about how art moves us, and I wanted to give our listeners like a weekly check-in on what kind of art we're consuming aside from the movie that we're going to be talking about today. So I guess I want to start with you. I want to ask you, what's something that you consumed this week? And it could be anything. It could be a movie. It could be a TV show. Or it could be a song, a podcast, a meme, even food. Food is art. We all know it. We've all seen The Bear. So what's a piece of art that you consumed this week that moved you?
So let me just say real quick, guys, peek behind the curtain. Right before we recorded, I was like, oh shit, I didn't think of something. And then you remembered something that I've been talking about. So you know, motherfucker, what this is going to be. And you're making me go first.
Oh, yeah. And I'm going to make you feel bad about it, too, because mine is a bit more serious. Anyways.
So, guys, I've been going through a lot personally. I'll keep it very simple, and lately I haven't really been making the time to consume a lot of really serious or meaningful art. We just saw The Monkey a couple nights ago. Honestly, I didn't care for it. A lot of people did.
We watched it last night.
That wasn't last night.
Oh, was it not last night? Oh, it wasn't. That's right. Okay, never
Yeah.
mind. It was a couple nights ago. You're right.
But with that being said, the best source of entertainment I've had lately in this time has been just stupid Instagram reels. And the one that's been in my head rent-free is this AI generated song and video of Lady Gaga. And it's a song about how there's poop all over her. That's all the fucking song is.
So there you go, guys. Chris, the art that moved Chris is a piece of AI. So that's
got
what
me
Chris,
through a week.
That's what Chris thinks about when he thinks about art. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. No, the reason I was pushing you to do this one because honestly, as silly as it was, you've been quoting me this fucking video every day.
It's like the only real excitement I've been having lately.
Yesterday we were eating dinner. We went to this great hot fried chicken place called Humblebird in LA. Shout out.
Yeah.
But you were red in the face laughing about this video for the fifth time.
Oh,
to
yeah,
me.
yeah. The lyrics are simple, don't look in my bag because there's some poop inside.
Don't look at my face, cause there's poop on it. Don't hold my hand, I think you know why.
It's so fucking stupid. That's been making me laugh.
We'll play a little bit of it here, and the audio listeners will just be able to listen to it. But I will say the AI demented video is kind of worth a watch. No, that's great.
Yeah.
So
you go. Now it's your turn.
mine is a bit more serious, and this is going to be a wild tangent. But I watched Do the Right Thing again for the first time a few days ago. No, not for the first time. Jesus Christ.
First time in a while, I think you meant to say.
I saw Do the Right Thing for the first time in a while. I own the Blu-ray to it. It's like this Criterion collection, really cool box set. And I haven't seen it in a while. Last time I saw it was probably in college. And I just put it on. And it's like, I don't know, one of the top 20 greatest movies of all time. You put it on and it's like, how did it like a guy in his mid-20s write this. It's one of the best scripts out there. All the performances are amazing. And the thing that I came out of it that I talked to you about the next morning was like, that movie feels like it has empathy for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And what's great about it is that you come out of it with more questions than you do answers, which is what any great art can do. But it really feels like he considered every single person on that block that day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's my favorite quality of the movie, is it's clearly presented tragically in a way, but it doesn't really blame anyone or point fingers. It kind of just tells it from, like you said, a very empathetic standpoint.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, it's one of the greats. So yeah, we're going to try to do this segment once a week. And I'm excited to do it because I feel like it'll keep like listeners and viewers in the loop on what we've been consuming, and it's on a week-to-week basis, you know?
Yeah. So, so you guys are in the loop of what I've been consuming too.
What if next week, to compensate, you're like, I've been reading some old Russian literature.
Yeah, exactly. I really try to come across as sophisticated.
No. I love you because you come in multitudes. You'll have phases where you'll be an avid reader, and then you'll have phases where you're like watching weird AI poop joke art.
I like everything,
Okay.
I can cue this question up, I guess, because
Yes.
I guess, you'll like, to be clear for you guys, when it comes to Goodwill Hunting, I just saw it for the first time a couple days ago. It's a movie that a lot of people yell at me to watch. A lot of people, I've been wanting to watch it. It's been on my radar for a long time. And so I don't really have a clear answer as to how it changed me because I'm still processing it so far.
Well, can I ask you like why you chose this movie?
Well, okay, I didn't choose it directly. I listed it in a couple suggestions, because I've been going through, some pretty gnarly personal stuff. I guess we agreed I'd talk about it a little bit, right?
Yeah.
I'm going through a breakup right now, and my life kind of turned upside down pretty quickly. And so I was looking into movies that revolved around like kind of accepting the past or resilience or being willing to make changes, like anything around that of like things getting better. It's never too late. And so I found that on the list, and I've been wanting to watch it for a while. And there were a couple others that I mentioned to you. I talked to you privately, like, I think I want to cover something that's reflecting what I'm going through right now, because it would feel disingenuous if we did something that was super broad and separate.
Yeah.
And so you were like, oh, I'd fucking love to do Goodwill Hunting. You're like, yeah, I've been wanting to talk about that movie with you for a while, So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, cool. Hell yeah, let's do it.
What a mean impression of me.
What?
Yeah, I'd love to do it.
No, you're excited.
You did me like I was on cocaine. Like,
But with that being said, though, Altaf, how did Goodwill Hunting change you?
in many ways, first and foremost, I watched this movie for the first time when I was in college. And I watched it because I heard the story that anyone who's a fan of like film or wants to get into filmmaking, they hear this story, which is Matt Damon and Ben Affleck wrote this together, and they wrote this movie with the hopes of casting themselves in it because they were friends since they were in high school, and they always wanted to like make it into the business, and this was their break-in. And it's an inspiring story. It's the same way that you hear about Tarantino working of video archives and writing like
Or Kevin Smith, or the kind of that 90s uprising of independent filmmakers.
Yeah, and then the fact that they won an Oscar for best screenplay, this was like a fairy tale story, right? And so I think like first and foremost, when I was in college, I watched it for that reason. And it's just inspiring to see, to like know that two kids this young wrote such a mature movie. But then on top of that, I feel like this is a movie that's just about life.
Yeah.
It's about, and that's very broadly speaking. I feel like, I feel like you can put a lot of meaning into that, but it's about every aspect of life. It's about feeling like you're stuck in your hometown, or it's about feeling like you don't want to leave your hometown because that's all you know. It's about meeting that girl that changes everything, like I mentioned, but it's also about fearing love, you know? And so I feel like Goodwill Hunting will always mean something different to me, but it just depends on what age I am. And I think right now the theme that I connect to most is like allowing yourself to be vulnerable to others, and fully loving someone so you can understand them as well. and not just casting assumptions on people. Those are the themes that right now connect to me the most. But I think what I love about this movie is that in 5 years it'll mean something different.
Yeah, and I think you find yourself kind of empathizing with the experience of all the characters to some degree, because there's like all the characters from what I remember, from what I saw is like have different worldviews of like what people's responsibilities are, what people should do with, obviously with, the character of Will having this gift of being extremely intelligent, this absurdly natural gift. And it's interesting how everyone kind of has different opinions on what he should do about it.
Oh, yeah.
And but no one really considers Will except for Robin Williams.
Dr. Sean McGuire.
Sean McGuire. Yeah, I knew it was Sean. I forgot his last name.
Yeah, okay. I have a bunch of questions before we get deep into it. Because I have been biting my tongue trying to like talk about this movie with you. Because like you mentioned, I've been trying to get you to watch this movie for a while.
Yeah.
Like many people probably have. And then you watched it. And then we were like, okay, let's not talk about it until we get to the podcast. We were supposed to shoot yesterday, and then we didn't. So I've been like waiting. What did you think?
I mean, I thought it was wonderful. Yeah, I thought it was like it was crazy knowing how popular this movie is, and it's such like a not in a bad way mundane, but it's just like such a normal drama.
But it made $225 million.
I know. I looked into that and saw how fucking successful it was, how it was like a star-making performance for, like you said, for Matt Damon and Ben Affleck and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it just feels like that type of phenomenon just wouldn't exist now.
It was, it's what the 90s were.
Yeah, 100%. But still, I've said this probably several times throughout this, the run of this podcast, of how a lot of movies in the 90s thematically have this kind of uniting factor of like getting out of your comfort zone or entering a new world, whether it's like Matrix or Office Space, Clerks. There's always this kind of theme of characters that are comfortable in their mundane lives and not really stepping outside and taking what they want instead of conforming to what society expects them to be.
Oh, yeah.
And it's interesting. I'm like, oh, this movie kind of does the same thing in a more naturalistic, sincere way. But I was also surprised like how much it normalizes therapy in a way. Like, because I'm sure at the time, therapy was kind of iffy for some people culturally. Whether or not people talked about it. Now this generation, a lot of young people are like, oh, my therapist.
Yeah.
Everyone talks about it.
But at
nothing.
this time, Sopranos wasn't out yet.
Yeah, exactly. It was before Sopranos. And so it was cool seeing like this kind of tough guy, whatever, right? Like you said, he goes and fucks around with his friends and gets into street fights and all this stuff. But you get to see like, oh, all of those people are worthy of therapy and opening up and revealing things about themselves, learning about themselves. That you can find your own self-worth in any capacity, in any context, no matter how old you are.
Yeah, and it's why I love Chucky so much, like the Ben Affleck character.
Yeah,
because he is the ultimate version of that guy you're talking about, that guy that fucks around at bars, has a construction job, and if you saw him at a bar, you wouldn't think twice. He'd say some jokes, you'd laugh at them, but then you'd maybe brush him off, right? Because he just fucks around all day. And even he gets a scene where you're like, whoa, there's a lot more going on here.
Yeah.
So like every character feels considered and realized.
Yeah. It like celebrates all of them in their own ways.
Yeah.
Obviously, like the Stellan Skarsgård's character, I forgot it. What's his name? The professor.
Yeah, Professor Jared Lambeau.
Jared Lambeau. That's right. I think he's the only one that kind of was consistently a bit of a dick throughout. He seemed like interesting at first, and then he kind of the dial turned, and he seemed like he was like more self-serving and a little more, But he had a worldview that a lot of people have, though. I will say, that you can kind of understand. We've all met people like him who think like if you have a talent, you need to fucking pursue that to its maximum potential. Otherwise, it's a waste.
And anyone who goes against you is just jealous.
Yeah.
Right. And okay. So you like the movie?
Yes.
What did you know about it going into it?
The only I knew the broader concept that it was about a gifted math, college age kid. I didn't know much about the context if he was a student or if he was not.
Yeah, you didn't even know that if he went to MIT or not.
Exactly. I just knew that Matt Damon's supposed to be a really gifted person, and he sees a counselor played by Robin Williams, and he has a damaged background. Because I've quoted to you, I did know the "It's Not Your Fault" scene ahead of time. I've seen it in like Vines and shit like that. I just knew that it existed, just being in the general peripheral. But
so the two Robin Williams movies that you hadn't seen, that were like big Robin Williams movies were Dead Poet Society and Goodwill Hunting.
Yeah.
You still haven't seen Dead Poet Society.
Which I will get to one day.
I know.
Just saying it for listeners too. We're like, what? Chris hasn't seen it?
And Goodwill Hunting. And as a joke, you used to throw it back at me and be like, oh, so it's the one where it's not Matt Damon's fault and the other one where all the kids stand up on a desk.
Because I've seen the poster. So I would just say shit just to piss you off, to pretend to be super ignorant.
Yeah. And I kind of made a joke to you yesterday. I was like, I kind of wish you'd never seen those movies, so that's how you knew them. Like,
Yeah.
no, okay. Okay, so that's exciting. So you really just had no idea what the premise of this movie was going to be.
No, I didn't.
I think what shocks me rewatching it every time is like how well Matt Damon and Ben Affleck wrote the, dialogue of all of the friends hanging out at a bar. Minnie Driver's character, Skylar and Will, just like having conversations while trying out goofy glasses. That dialogue felt so natural. And I don't know about you and how you felt about it, but like I've written a lot of really poorly written dialogue of people talking in bars.
Yeah.
And it always feels way too written. And I've written way too many scenes of a guy flirting with a girl and it feels way too written. And this movie just feels like, oh, these are real people.
Yeah.
And they're hanging out. Like, I don't know. It's obviously a lot of his performance, but the dialogue just feels, it doesn't feel written at all.
Yeah.
And then especially the therapy scenes don't feel overly saccharine at all. It just feels like...
Oh, well, especially, yeah, like you said, they were in their 20s when they wrote this, and they wrote very sincere, like, middle-aged people, which is hard to do. I mean, like, when you're writing outside of your own personal experience in any capacity, you're going to have to use your brain a little more than average, of what someone's going through. And they wrote someone who not only is, an older, counselor, but also someone who's grieving his wife, and was still able to talk about and reflect on his wife and mourn her throughout their dialogue together, and still knew what, boundaries to keep between him and Matt Damon.
Yeah.
Too, in terms of like, he didn't just pour his heart out like he would a colleague or a friend, but he, still tried to relate to him,
Yeah, and the movie takes its time for him to have that breakthrough moment, like the it's not your fault scene.
Yeah.
So the first thing I want to touch on is how well this movie captures like the monotony of life.
Mm-hmm.
Especially those like first 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Like simple scenes that, again, beginning writers wouldn't include, especially beginning writers who want to be like actors and really break it in. They wouldn't do scenes like, Chucky just picking up Will, getting him in the car, and then them just in the car talking about like, hey, give me my sandwich. I asked for the sandwich. Like, oh, well, we're going to keep it right here until you pay me back and stuff like that. They wouldn't keep scenes where Will's just in the train and he's looking at the houses go by. But what all those scenes do so well is that it just feels like, oh, it's showing you how these guys do the same thing every day.
Yeah.
It doesn't bang it against your head, but it's like immediately very clear that this is like, like I said in my synopsis, every day they probably see some random guy that they're like, we got to beat that guy up.
Yeah. Well, I was just say, like, normally in most screenplays, that's discouraged to do the day in the life kind of thing, but it's so important to what this movie's trying to say. And it works.
Yeah, like the main messages are what's in between the scenes, Like you might not think a scene like them just watching a baseball game, these kids' baseball game is important, right? You could just maybe lift that. But not only do you need that plotting wise to see him beating up so Will could go to court and then eventually get all that, but it's also important just to see them like this is their life.
Well, yeah,
and it's not bad. Like Will seems to be enjoying himself.
Oh yeah, and it's funny, and the characters are all in good moods and all that, and also like you as the viewer feel that monotony too. You know what I mean? You feel like you're having the same day again and again with them.
But you know what's interesting though? But it doesn't do. The reason I said it doesn't bang your head with it is that it doesn't show its cards of like, look how miserable Will's life is. You actually, I think the magic of it is like when I'm in the car with them, I actually kind of want to hang out with these guys.
Yeah.
They seem like really fun guys to hang out. Dude, especially Chucky. I love Ben Affleck in this movie.
Yeah.
Like Chucky seems like the best friend you could have.
I know. Ben Affleck is like probably the most outgoing I've seen him in a role. Like normally he plays a little more like reserved, stoic people.
Right. But this is like, he's just this guy.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm just gonna go get some pussy from us from the across.
Yeah, I know. You're like, all right, dude.
But I think that's important that you want to hang out with them and you like them, because sometimes when you're in that mode in life where you've gotten fully comfortable, you kind of forget the plot a little bit of your own life, of where it was supposed to go. And it isn't until Stellan Skarsgård and Robin Williams and these people come in life, and especially Dr. Sean, Robin Williams, comes in his life and shows that, listen, I love you and I'm not giving up on you. That's when Will realizes, like, maybe there could be something more. And so I guess I wanted to say all that to ask you, like, is the stuff that you're going through right now is really heavy, and we don't have to get deep into it. But did a part of what you are going through right now wake you up a little bit in terms of, like, oh my God, this is an aspect of my life that I completely missed out on because I got comfortable with the day to day?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like, I was already, just generally, not to be super downer, but I was generally pretty unhappy with the way things were, and I didn't want him to stay that way anyway. And so I think there is, like, a weird newfound freedom with it at the same time, despite all the pain and anxiety and all that shit I'm going through. There's still a lot, there's like this kind of new kind of light at the end of the tunnel to feel like, okay, well, now I can kind of do what I want, and I can kind of reforge my life in such a way, where I realize, like, oh yeah, there is, like, other stuff out there,
Yeah.
And so, I think what's interesting about the character of Will, though, is that he uses his intelligence as a defense mechanism. Like, he doesn't like use it to, like, he doesn't bolster his own curiosity or challenge himself. He's just naturally gifted, but he uses it as a way to, like, I owned you. I'm scaring you away because I'm smarter than you. You know what I mean?
Something you had mentioned when you watched this, like, after you watched this movie, you're like, hey, we'll talk about this in the podcast, but something I really liked is how much of this movie is related to this show that you and I do. Talk about that for a second.
Yeah, well, it was really that bench scene, which I'm assuming is pretty famous, if I had to guess. Like I said, I'm pretty out of the loop on a lot of the culture around this movie.
I mean, it's the poster of the movie.
Yeah. So, but it is, like, one of the most important scenes, when I think he's the only person to actually call out Will, of like, hey, listen, I know what you're doing and I'm not falling for it. Basically, I know you're trying to show off all your knowledge, but you don't have any wisdom because you're young and you're still, at the end of the day, just a kid. I know you're trying to make it seem like you're above everyone else,
I bet you if I asked you about the Sistine Chapel, you could list off these facts, but do you know how that room smells?
Exactly, which is, like, a whole different thing. Like, you can have, you don't have to have the highest education to still have, like, a deep understanding of life and people and emotions and feelings and things that, like, where you can really find fulfillment. And basically he's telling Will, like, you don't have any fulfillment right now, because you keep everyone at an arm's distance and you use your, genius as, like, a way to push people away.
And, like, specifically how it relates to this show, which is what you pointed out, is how when you live a life and you actually take chances, that enhances not only your ability to make art, but also to consume art.
Like art, it's a reflection of life, and if you're not experiencing life, it's hard to really understand and appreciate art.
You can watch something at a you can watch or consume something at a very surface level.
Yeah.
But if you actually take chances and experience life in new ways and challenge yourself, it opens up doors not only to opportunities for yourself, but opportunities to how to consume art.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating thing.
The most simple comparison to make is, like, you can listen to love songs and think they're catchy, but until you actually, like, experience love and understand it or whatever it is, that music will have a very different relationship with you. You know what I mean? There are going to be some songs you're going to avoid and some songs you're going to love, Yeah, and it's because it's shaped around your own experience as a person.
Something we always talk about in this show is how not only the movie, a certain movie changed us, but, like, how it's changed for us throughout the years. Like, it's not just this one effect that it had on us. It was just like, oh, I enjoyed it at this point in my life, but now it means something completely different because of what I've went through.
Yeah. I mean, like, that's why, I loved Clerks in high school. And I love that movie even more once I actually started doing some customer service related jobs.
I mean, we talked about this in our Clerks podcast a while back, but like when I watched Clerks recently, I actually teared up at that final like Randall and Dante scene.
Yeah,
which
yeah.
I wouldn't ever think that I would cry watching Clerks.
Yeah.
But that's the power of life and art.
Yeah, yeah. And I think going back to Goodwill Hunting, I think it was interesting that like, Sean was the only one that like really saw Will. You know what I mean? Which is rare. I think a lot of people don't have that when someone really sees you.
Yeah.
And he still challenges him and calls him out. It's like, yeah, just see a cocky little shit, whatever he says, which is fine. But it's like he really sees him,
I think the reason it works though for Will is that it's the first person, and I wrote this in my notes, but it's the first person that's not trying to get something from Will. But he's trying to do something for Will.
He's giving something to him. Yeah.
Will's whole life, which is it's revealed even to what depth, people have taken stuff from him. People he was supposed to trust.
Yeah.
Adults, right? When it comes to actual physical or emotional abuse. And even Stellan Skarsgård's character, Professor Lambeau, he wants his mind.
Yeah.
I was like, I want, like, you're a great mind. And yeah, like, I'll put you through therapy. But then what's interesting is that when he puts him through, like, when he finds him an actually good therapist, Stellan Skarsgård starts getting impatient.
Yeah, he's like, whoa, that's not supposed to be that way. He's not supposed to actually look at what he wants.
And Dr. Sean is, like, the first one that's kind of just like, no, let's figure you out, man. Let's actually, like, I'm here for you.
Well, I noticed as well, Stellan Skarsgård very rarely says his name. He always calls him the boy.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, Robin Williams does throughout too. He says the boy whenever they talk about it. But notice like he rarely says like Will. He rarely like even humanizes him just talking about him.
Robin Williams is like a warm hug in this movie.
Oh, I know, dude.
That beard, there's something so cozy about the way he looks.
I know, right? The way his soft-spoken demeanor and the way I know. And just knowing what his own personal experience is.
Yeah, no, I think like what's interesting about Robin Williams in this movie is we're very used to him being like up here, very energetic. And it's just so, honestly, it's kind of jarring seeing him be talking the whole movie like, so, Will, what do you think about these books? Do you read these books? And he's like so like patient. Just shows how strong of a dramatic actor he really was.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and he did such a good job of like not really being impressed or trying to, like the way, again, like I said, Will was like listing off all the books and kind of roasting his taste or roasting his art and all that stuff.
I love that scene where he's like, oh, you read these books? What about those books over there? What
Yeah.
about those books? And just like, he's trying to like, what I like about it is that unlike the other therapists, he's not trying to do any sort of trick on Will.
Mm-hmm.
He's just trying to figure him out first. Like the first session, he's just like, who are you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then when he fucking chokeholds him.
Yeah, I did not expect that moment too when he grabs him by the throat.
That's such a clear like, oh, this is a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And the other therapists didn't feel like a human beings. And you can tell like that affected Will. It's like, oh, this is actually a guy. He's not trying to put some spin on me. He's not trying to fix me. He doesn't feel like a doctor.
He's just talking to me.
And so that bench scene is important because he bears his heart to Will.
Yeah.
And Will realizes like, oh shit, I'm like talking to a person, not just this object that's trying to get something from me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's what I mean. Like I've been saying multiple times now, how like he uses his intelligence as like a weapon throughout,
Yeah. I think like what I also love about a lot of the therapy scenes is they're shot in these extreme close-ups. Like even that bench scene is there's like basically one wide, but a lot of it is on a close-up on Robin Williams' face.
Mm-hmm.
And then it slowly transitions to Will in like one shot.
Yeah.
And close-ups can be overused sometimes. Sometimes they can be just a very lazy technique. But the close-ups in this movie feel so intentional because, especially in the therapy sequences, it feels like the camera is the audience and the audience is trying to read them just as much these two characters are trying to read each other.
Yeah, yeah. I know their dynamic is just very interesting and the filmmaking reflects that very well.
How did you feel about that specifically? That was just my take, but what did
you... well, I think the most moving scene, and maybe just because of recent circumstances, was when Will was expressing his apprehension to getting closer to Skylar. And then that's when Robin Williams was like, oh, no. Like, believe it or not, she is not perfect. Or whatever that line is that he says. That was probably one of the most kind of impactful moments to me, because I'm like, it's very true what he says.
Because Will is just like, oh, she's perfect right now. I don't want to ruin that. And then he's like, well, maybe you're perfect right now and you don't want to ruin that. Yeah.
Well, that exactly. It's like there's a vulnerability, obviously, that comes, and this isn't even just with romantic relationships, but any like friendships, something that I can relate to. I have trouble with this. I keep a lot of friends at arm's distances, but like there is a vulnerability that comes with showing really yourself, warts and all, and then looking at someone else, warts and all, and being like, that's okay.
The best thing that I feel like you've been doing during this like very tough time, and it shows like real improvement on how you've dealt with something like this in the past.
Yeah.
Not just a breakup, but just tough times in general, is you're putting in an effort to reach out to people. And that is, and I know for you, that is like a hard thing to do, because like similar to the way Will handles things, you are not violent, but you are someone that is very much like, I don't want people to see that part of me.
Yeah.
Like, you've shared that with me a lot, where you've just been like, I don't feel like my best self right now. So I don't want to like, I think it's better if I just keep it in.
Yeah.
And there's obviously a difference. Like it's okay to want alone time. It's okay to want to be with your thoughts a little bit, but it's also okay to reach out to people when you're not feeling the best.
Yeah. I have a pretty gnarly defense mechanism when it comes to that too. I mean, I don't obviously have I didn't have the same upbringing as Will at all. You know what I mean?
But
nothing like that.
You don't have to relate to him.
Yeah, exactly. But I do inherently have some trust issues with people.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to really be open. I keep my real friend group pretty small, And even with Will, like his friend group is pretty surface level. They're mostly just fucking around and drinking, and but he doesn't have any like real conversations with his friends until towards the end.
With Chucky, yeah.
Yeah, with Chucky. And so
it's that thing that Skylar says to him, and then also Dr. Sean says to him. It's just like, you don't have anyone that challenges you.
Yeah, exactly. And so with that being said, I do appreciate you saying that, because that was something that I did want to make an effort to do, because I do tend to cocoon myself. And I was like, wait, you know what? I probably need the support right now, and I know I'd be proud of myself if I just did it, How
have you been feeling through that? Like sharing a part of yourself that you wouldn't usually.
Really appreciative, like super grateful, really appreciative, because I think,
because I've seen that aspect of it move you more than like I've seen you get emotional over the fact that people are there for you.
Dude, I know, because I'm not trying to shade any of my own background or any of that shit. It's just something I'm not used to.
Yeah, of course.
And it's something that I don't put. It's more on me. Like, I don't put myself open to these types of interactions with people. But it was very nice. Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about the story that Dr. Sean Robin Williams says about meeting that girl at the bar that becomes his future wife before this iconic Red Sox game?
And then, that's when Matt Damon gets all like flustered and straight. He's like, what, you didn't see it?
Well, that scene is amazing because it's cutting back to the game, but then also you're seeing both of them get riled. It's such an electric scene between two actors that feels like an action sequence, because it's just those two in a room, but you feel like you're with them there.
Well, because it's like it's two human beings connecting, and it shows that in a very authentic way, because it's from the perspective of a guy who doesn't really connect,
Yeah, and it's so thrilling to see them both like standing up. It like moves me, that scene. Yeah, he tells that whole story about like it was one of the best games ever, yada yada yada. You and I are not big sports fans, so maybe we can't connect to this story, but like there's that moment, it's like, I can't believe you were at that game.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I didn't go to that game. He's like, what? And he's like, oh yeah, no, I stayed with that girl at the bar. And it's like, you missed that game at the bar? He's like, yeah, I when I saw her, it's like, oh, she was a real stunner. You should have seen her.
Yeah, and he's like, no, I don't care about that.
He's like, he handed his tickets to his friends and slid a note that said, you guys go ahead. I got to go see about a girl.
Yeah.
And
they're like, what'd they say? He's like, they can tell by my face that I was serious about this.
And he goes on to make this speech. It's just like, I don't regret anything. Yeah. I don't regret missing that game to talk to her at that bar. I don't
regret losing her. Essentially, is really what he's trying to say.
Well, he literally says, I don't regret those years where she got really sick.
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
Which it implies that he watched her go for like a while. you know?
Yeah, he doesn't regret any of it, and that's the thing that even like Stellan Skarsgård can't get across his head. Like he looks at that as jealousy. He's like, you're just jealous of me. That's why you don't want to you don't come to those reunions. You don't do that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I do love how Sean is just like, it's not that, you idiot. Like it's not about you. Like that's the thing about him. It's like he wasn't jealous. It's never about him.
He found something just more fulfilling than that, and then I think Stellan Skarsgård can't wrap his head around that.
It was not even the more fulfilling thing. It was more about just the fact that like, dude, I had to quit my lab because of my wife, and then I couldn't move on.
Yeah. Well, and I guess when I say more fulfilling in the sense of like, you know, he valued his personal relationship over, some arbitrary career goal.
Fields medal.
Yeah, exactly. A field medal that they talk about. It's the It's a Wonderful Life thing at the end. You know, no man's a failure who has friends. You know.
Yeah, and it's an amazing scene. It's just and it's a scene I think about a lot.
And it pays off beautifully at the end.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, I know. I'm just wrapping up that point on that movie, that scene.
How'd you feel watching that scene?
I mean, same here. I think it was very interesting seeing that kind of dichotomy between, you know, Will being like we've been saying, kind of in a tug of war between pursuing his intelligence and really challenging himself, which he doesn't seem to give a shit about his own intelligence. He doesn't really understand what he has, you know?
Oh, it's that scene with him and Skylar, where Skylar's just like, how do you just get this?
Yeah.
It's organic chemistry. People don't just do this for fun. And how he's just like, well, it's like, I can just, with this kind of stuff, I can just play.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think it was very important, I guess, to, you know, Will's character, though, hearing a story of someone who valued just wanting to hang out with the person instead of doing, you know, going to like some big grandiose event. You know what I mean? And I think that was something Will needed to wrap his head around a little bit. The idea that like a real connection or relationship with another human being is something that's like, you know, you can't put a price on that. You can't put nothing can really replace that.
It's also the first scene in the therapy where it's just like Will doesn't seem like he's the defense. He's not just sitting in the back smoking a cigarette. He's not walking around while Robin Williams is sitting. They're both standing up. They're both like pushing each other around, and it's electric. I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah, I know the blocking added so much, especially early on, the way he, you know, famously when he's like kind of screwing with all of the therapists early on.
Yeah.
But yeah, when he's hanging out with Robin Williams for the first couple scenes, like you said, he's walking around and lighting a cigarette. There's so much like kind of subtext visually without him saying anything, but you just know he's just trying to he's trying to alpha Robin Williams. He's trying to intimidate him.
Yeah. And it kind of works, the first scene. Like,
he gets under his skin and he grabs him by the throat. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Minnie Driver.
Okay.
What did you think about her?
Oh, I thought she was great. She grew on me. You know, early on,
She grew on you.
Yeah.
You didn't like her from the first scene?
No, I loved her. I totally loved her, but I didn't know where the movie was going to go at all. I didn't know she was going to be like an important character.
I was like, dude, I fell in love with her the moment I watched her on screen.
No, not like, I just mean it in the sense of like, I didn't know the extent of the importance of her character throughout the whole movie.
Sure.
And so then I felt the attachment that he grew to her as the movie progressed.
Okay, so let's talk about the first, like the meet cute, basically.
Yeah.
So Chucky has this, he decides like, we're going to go to some Harvard bars.
Harvard bars.
So Harvard bars. And I'm not even going to attempt to do a Boston accent.
Yeah, I'm just saying to the one time, all the Boston shit in this movie.
And I love his line when he enters the bar. He's like, I just thought there would be some equations on the wall or some shit. And then he's like, I'd like the finest lager you have.
It's normal people drinking beer.
But
what if you just see like, you know, Mark Zuckerberg in the background?
Right. Of course. God, what are some other Boston movies?
Yeah.
I guess Leo, Undercover, and Departed. Like, I can't think of anything. Anyways, Chucky clocks a few girls, and he's like, I'm going to get some girls for us, and goes over there. I want to believe that this is actually, when Ben Affleck was young, this is how he used to flirt.
Yeah, pretending to be like a smart college student.
No, not that. Specifically, just walking up to a group of girls and just kind of standing there until they say something, which is what he does. It's like he goes up there and he just like looks away and they both laugh and he's like, oh, hey, do I know you from somewhere? And what I like about that scene is that, again, it's hard. It's so fucking hard to write scenes like this.
Yeah.
Because they can come off as so cheesy, and just like disingenuine and very written. But I like how the two girls, including Minnie Driver, don't shun him away. They kind of entertain him a little bit. They're having fun. And you can tell in their mind, they're like, he's a cute guy, so we'll have some fun with him and maybe just kind of like let him go on his own way. But this is kind of funny.
Yeah,
we know
yeah.
he doesn't go to Harvard. It's fine. But this is funny. And also Ben Affleck just is not threatening. He's like such a chill guy. I'm just like fascinated by that scene. That scene just works.
Yeah, it's like he comes in and just kind of wants to make small talk, but clearly the intention's there.
This fucking guy Clark comes in.
That's when the wrench is thrown in.
Who's the most like Clark looking guy you've ever seen.
His ponytail.
Obviously, that scene is basically Will Hunting coming between them. It's a pretty iconic scene.
Well, it's the first time you get to see him really flex his muscles.
They're like, oh shit, this guy's smart.
Yeah.
Because we'd seen him do that equation earlier.
But it's different when he's like verbally interacting with someone.
What I find interesting about this scene is that Will calls out this fucking guy for being like, you just like, oh, what? You read this part of the book too? So what are you going to do? Plagiarize it for the rest for us?
Yeah.
It's just like he's calling out this guy for basically regurgitating what he's read, which is what a lot of college students do.
Mm-hmm.
If you've been to colleges, if you've been to universities, and you just talk to kids who think they're smarter than they really are. What's interesting is that Robin Williams' character calls him out for the same shit later.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, 100%.
Because that's what Will's doing. He's also just regurgitating.
Yeah.
He's not better than Clark. You know what I mean? Maybe he's got more like Riz, I guess, but like...
Yeah. Well, he knows more than Clark is essentially what it was. It was
but
essentially
he's still just regurgitating. He
absolutely, yeah.
You know?
It was essentially a glorified dick measuring contest, even though he was trying to make it seem like it wasn't.
Then obviously Minnie Driver comes over,
mm-hmm.
and she's like, you're an idiot. I was waiting over there for you to come to me and ask me for my number. You never did. And they get each other's... he gets her number. And it's my favorite scene in the movie where they're walking away.
And they see him through the window.
And they're like, okay. Hey, you like apples?
How do you like them apples?
Which I'm pretty sure that phrase originated from that movie.
Oh, okay. That's fun.
Hi, this is Altaf jumping in here to say that it did not. I was wrong. That was dumb of me to say. And I should walk the plank. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what's? Do you remember you used that clip for a brand deal that we did on the reaction channel?
No, what?
It was for, I want to say it was for Exter. We did something.
Did I like key like Exter's wallet over the app or the number?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was that one. It was one of our brand deals, and you use that clip. Exter has a beautiful selection of smart wallets. Think what James Bond would use, what Ethan Hunt would use, what Matt Damon would use.
How do you like them apps?
Because I remember when I watched the movie, I was like, oh, that's what that is. Because, listeners, who probably know us from Nice Dude Movie Night, know we did brand deals, and we did a lot of B-roll from different movies and TV shows.
To integrate it into the ad reads.
Yeah, to enhance our ad reads. And so one of them, I want to say it was for one of the, like an old, like a 2 or 3 year old Christmas movie, because Exter wanted us to do a holiday brand deal. And at the time, we used a clip of Matt Damon slapping his hand on the window.
And you hadn't seen Goodwill Hunting at that point.
So I just thought it was some Matt Damon movie.
What do you think of their relationship?
Oh, I think it's great because, I like that she is incredibly compassionate to him, but he just can't see it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially when it leads to their big kind of explosive argument towards the end. I was fucking hooked in. But even throughout, though, they always had a really nice, wholesome banter that was never too overly written, but they weren't boring either. They just felt like humans and young people just connecting.
I mean, it feels like the scene that really just reminded me of the Before trilogy was when they're both in bed.
Yeah, when they're just talking.
And, they're making out, they're kissing or whatever. And it just felt like I was there.
In a not weird way.
Yeah, like I was the other guy in the bed just watching. I know, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's, again, I keep repeating this. It's hard to write dialogue like that and without it feeling like you're a first-time filmmaker.
Yeah.
And they pull it off really well. Minnie Driver's amazing. Also, Matt Damon and Minnie Driver dated a little bit after this movie. And you can see it because you're just like, there's no way they're not in love with each other while filming this. There's absolutely no way.
Well, yeah, and then, obviously, when she ends up asking him to move to California with her, and that's when...
Oh, wait, can I just shout out before we get to that scene? Because I want to talk about it.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how, I've seen this movie 5 times now, every time I watch it, I forget about the scene where she's telling the story to Chucky and all the friends.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that was the thing I did want to bring up, that there were seeds planted where, again, he didn't want to show any of the warts of himself, which is a
the
universal
12
feeling.
brothers thing.
Yeah, like, you know, and yeah, he was just afraid of, you know, showing his not like perceived weaknesses, because he was afraid of her, because essentially she was going to college and she had all this stuff ahead of her, and she was into him, who he perceived himself as this, you know, super average Joe, low life kind of thing. You know, that's how he saw himself.
And what's amazing is that like any other movie would like have that scene with his like Southie friends, that they would embarrass him and then the girl wouldn't really like them because they would say inappropriate stories or whatever. But what's amazing is that she gets along with them perfectly.
Yeah. Well, and
they love her because and like it just shows you that this is all Will's baggage.
oh yeah, it's all his baggage that he projects onto her.
Yeah.
When he says like, oh, I can just be your little story. You know, you can go back to, you know, get married to somebody. You can be, oh yeah, I fucked some random Boston dude once, or whatever he says.
Okay, so
you
yeah,
know?
let's talk about that scene. She asks him to move to California, and he immediately goes into this defense mode. It's like, what if you find out something about me you don't like? Isn't that scene is just fucking gripping, man?
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
that's like a basic thing to say, but like you're just you don't move when you watch it.
Yeah, well, it's just so sad, because you know that she unconditionally does love him. You know,
And it's what's sad about it is what gets me every time is her reactions to when he says, "You don't want to know how I got cigarettes put out on me." And then she looked like, you can see it cuts to her, and it doesn't cut to the scars in his body, but it cuts to her looking at them and saying, "Oh, honey, I didn't know." And she's like crying. That's what gets me. It's her reaction to being like, "Fuck, I love you still, but I had no idea it went this deep."
yeah.
Like she knew there was something going on, but she had no idea to what extent. And it's heartbreaking that she still loves him, but she also understands why he is the way he is.
Yeah, and that he, you know, because of what he's been through when he was young, he can't open himself up because he was probably punished for it back in the day. So he's just wired to, you know, just keep like this kind of very clear arm's distance, surface level interpretation of who he is.
Yeah.
You know, and one of the hardest things to do when you love someone, you know, whether again it's a friend or family or anything like that, is to bear all, you know what I mean? Just to show like, yeah, no, I fucked up here, this and that, this happened, or this happened to me, so now I'm, you know, afraid of this.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think it clearly set something off in him, because he was falling in love with her. You know what I mean?
Well, and also like
And he sabotaged it.
he sabotaged it because it was like there was this next step coming, which is going into the unknown, which is leaving Boston, going to California with her in a place he doesn't know, getting a job that he has no experience with, being around people that are not his friends that he grew up with. And, you know, the trauma that he went through in the past forces him to cling on to what he knows best,
Yeah.
because at least that won't disappoint him. And like, it's what Dr. Sean explains to Lambo, which is like, you realize why he hangs out with those friends? Because they would take a bat to anyone who fucks with them, and that's loyalty.
Yeah.
And that's and this is a guy who hasn't had that his entire life. So when he meets like Chucky and Morgan and all these like fuckers, he knows they'll be there for him.
Yeah. Well, and they do such a good job, even in a small way. I mean, I don't want to jump around too much, but I'm just going to touch on this real quick. Is during the "It's Not Your Fault" scene, when he says that multiple times, how he says, "Don't fuck with me, Sean, not you." You know what I mean? Because he was liking him, and he's like afraid of like, you know, I don't want to be betrayed by you now. You know what I mean? Because I've been betrayed before.
And for him, it's like betrayal has gotten confused now. Now it's like anyone who even challenges him for his own good is betrayal.
Yeah.
Like Skylar betrayed him. You know what I mean? And so Sean pushing back on Will to this point is like, come on, man. I don't want to lose you.
Yeah.
Because he already feels that coming now.
He
He's
feels like his
"Fuck."
world's crumbling around him a little bit, just because of like how much pressure he's under.
Yeah.
And how much he's, you know, kind of clearly in crisis mode of what he wants to do with his life. And he just lost a girlfriend because of, he probably knows that it's his own doing. You know, he says it too before "It's Not Your Fault." He's like, is that why I broke up with Skylar?
Well, I have to ask you, because I think you were sharing with me this past week how you've gotten like some anxiety spikes here and there. And it's come in waves.
Oh,
and
consistently, by the way, just to be clear.
right. Okay. When I know you said that you feel super appreciative of like feeling like there's so many people there for you. Does any sort of guard go up when like you get that situation brought back at you the way Sean it goes to Will is like, hey, listen, man, it's not your fault. Have you felt that version of it? And it doesn't have to be right now, these past month or whatever. Have you felt that version of it of like someone just telling you, listen, man, like what you're going through is normal and it's okay. And you fight back. You're like, I'm fucking fine. Like, have you felt that feeling before?
All the time. I think you know that about me. You know, I think you know I have trouble like fully, you know, admitting when I'm not doing well or when I'm struggling with something. I kind of try to keep that look that I'm like, well, I know I'm a little anxious right now, or I'm a little depressed right now, but like I'll get through it fine. That's just my brain doing shit. You know, and I look at it very like mechanically.
Yeah.
As like a guard.
Yeah.
And so
it's Matt Damon's performance reflects that too, which is just like when he says the first two, I know.
yeah, exactly.
It's kind of him brushing it off a little bit. Like, of course.
I get it. Yeah,
it.
exactly.
You don't have to tell me twice. You know?
And so recently, though, all things considered, while all this shit's been going on, I was on the phone with my dad for a while. And I think I told you about this personally, but for listeners, viewers, I told my dad everything because there were just some things about my relationship I didn't really share with people because it was just kind of private and whatever. But at this point, I was just in a very raw, vulnerable spot, and I told him everything.
Yeah.
And obviously, without getting into any details on stuff, my dad basically was one of the first people to just tell me, I am sorry you went through that, you know? And that meant a lot to me, you know, we've been saying, to kind of fully just kind of have your experience validated, you know.
I mean, I think what that touches on, and also the whole "it's not your fault" scene touches on, is this feeling where, okay, you've heard the same thing over and over again said about you, but then someone has to say it in a certain way that could hit you, like here.
Well, yeah, and he makes it clear to, you know, how Matt Damon brushes it off like, yeah, I know. And he's like, no, I think you need to really release this and forgive yourself, because he probably carries that with him, you know, that whatever you want to call it, that baggage. And the way, obviously, you know, when he finally lets it out and hugs him, you know,
he says, my God.
Yeah, and he sounds like a child, you know, like almost like all of that just is just fucking let out like a tidal wave.
I always interpreted like him saying like, my God, over and over again was like him feeling overwhelmed at the fact that he's crying this much. He's like, holy shit, this is like, I didn't know I needed this.
Oh, yeah, no. Sometimes it'd be like that, especially as a man, you know, especially as men, we're much more emotionally inarticulate. You know, I'm sure many dudes listening can relate to that.
A lot of the times, like, I've cried in front of you. Yeah. And when I've like felt very overwhelmed about something, when I've gone through stuff, I've cried in front of you.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when I cry in front of you, I'm like, I'm so sorry. I don't know why I'm fucking crying. Holy shit. Why am I crying? Oh my God. Like, you're just shocked at your own emotions because men can't fucking deal with that.
If there's anything listeners can get out of this for men, if you need to, just fucking cry, man. Just fucking.
But also, like, I think cry without apologizing.
Absolutely.
That's something that I do struggle with a lot is like, if I cry in front of you, I apologize all the time for it. And I think something that women are able to do in a very easy way is comfortably cry in front of their friends and just be like, yeah, it's okay. You're crying. It's fine. This is normal. This is what you're supposed to do.
And maybe that's whatever, that's societal, or if that's, you know, we're used to our parents being like, I'll give you something to cry about.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shit that can wire us and condition us that way. But honestly, there's nothing fucking wrong with releasing. It's a normal thing to do. It's like having to poop and holding it in, you know what I mean?
Totally.
It's like any bodily function that you need to do so you can heal.
Well, it's kind of amazing that these two kids from Boston wrote a story about the fact that, like, yeah, men need to let it out. Men need to cry.
People need to examine themselves and reflect and learn and, you know, forgive, heal, whatever you got to do. But in order for you to take yourself somewhere in life that you want to be, you do have to examine those things, you know. Otherwise, you're like, you know, the movie shows, though, your walls are going to be up everywhere you go. You're not going to feel safe with anyone. You know, no one should carry that. Life's too short to carry that shit, you know?
So now I think we should transition into two scenes that I really want to talk about that'll maybe break this tension that we're going through. We're talking about some deep shit. But one scene that I want to shout out is Robin Williams' story about how he heard his wife fart in her sleep one time. Oh,
yeah, dude. Well, yeah, that whole moment of Robin Williams truly celebrating like the fucking weird shit that you go through in relationships it was very nice to see. You know what I mean? Especially when he's mourning her. You know, clearly he's still grieving and still isn't over it. But the fact that he doesn't remember, like, oh, like in movies when they always show like the
dead wife montage.
The dead wife montage, laying next to her and smiling.
It's underneath the white covers.
Exactly. And the fact that he's like, yeah, dude, my wife used to rip some gnarly farts. I'm like, that's real, dude. You know what I mean? At least in my experience in multiple long-term relationships.
You remember, you also are fond of like the weird shit, the funny shit.
Yeah, the really stupid shit too.
Okay, so something about that scene that like behind the scenes, that moment Robin Williams is telling that story, that was not in the script. He improvised that scene.
Okay, of course.
So
so rad.
Matt Damon laughing, that's a genuine laugh.
It looked like such a real laugh too.
And if you look at the close-up of Matt Damon, the camera's shaking. That's because the camera operator was laughing. And they kept it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't notice the camera shaking, funny enough.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those things you don't notice unless you know the story. And then when you watch it again, you can see it shaking, so it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
But isn't that amazing? Like, because both their laughs feel so genuine too, so it's like they actually made each other laugh. Okay, and then another scene that I love this scene so much because it's so insane. They're all hanging out at Chucky's mom's house. And Chucky's like, hold on one second. And then you just hear moaning from like upstairs. He's like, Morgan, if you're jerking off in my mom's room. And he comes, Casey Affleck, who's just such a little shit in this movie.
Oh yeah, I know we haven't mentioned him yet, but he's so funny in this movie.
He's funny because he gives off like such younger brother energy. Like he's this like squirrely guy that sits in the back seat.
Very different than who he was in Oppenheimer. He was so scary in Oppenheimer.
Honestly, the most terrifying performance in Oppenheimer.
So fucking
Remember
creepy.
how he's like, no, just give me the names.
Yeah, dude, you're like, I don't wanna.
I remember someone pointed out how like his look at Oppenheimer feels like he shaves every other hour. Like he's so clean shaven.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but yeah, it's he comes down and he's holding a baseball glove and he's like, no, come on, did you do it in my glove?
Yeah.
I was like, I just used it to clean up. And then he's just like, that was my preschool like baseball glove.
Little league glove or whatever.
My little
he
league
says.
glove. Will, you just see him. He just has his feet up on the table. It's one of those things where like Will could see himself doing this for the rest of his life, just hanging out at his friend's place. And
Yeah, but I think what's cool is that what Sean unlocks for Will is he still calls him out. He's like, okay, then why'd you answer that math question? You clearly have a desire to apply yourself. You know what I mean? You're saying like
Will's making this whole argument. It's like, what's wrong with laying brick?
Yeah.
And Sean's like, nothing. My dad laid brick. And he's like, okay, exactly. It's there's honor in that. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, right. Yeah, because that's what you're doing. You're doing it for the honor.
Yeah,
So tell
exactly.
me something. Why did you choose, you could mop floors and be a janitor anywhere. Why did you choose it in the most prestigious fucking college in the world?
and you're answering incredibly advanced math equations.
like
too.
you went to MIT to be a janitor.
Yeah, exactly. And
It's that thing of like, he's too scared of his own potential.
yeah. What makes such a cool dichotomy between him and Sean is that Sean is someone who has loved and been loved back and was hurt for it, essentially, because he lost the love of his life. But he's like, I don't regret it because I got to experience something real.
But I will say there is a parallel because in a way Sean is also now
He's suffering for
crippled
it
by
too.
fear a little
Yeah.
bit. Like
That's very true, yeah.
He doesn't want to do anything for himself anymore. Like he gave up treating veterans, he gave up like traveling, he gave up everything.
Yeah, and you see the dishes aren't done when you cut to his home.
But
There's all these little things.
One
like,
of my favorite like shots
yeah,
is just the first time you see Robin Williams' house in that movie is just a pile of dishes. That's filmmaking. That's you're telling a story. Gus Van Sant tells a story in 2 shots. The pile of dishes and then the cut to Robin Williams with a glass of whiskey. And that's it. No dialogue, no words are spoken, nothing else.
Yeah.
That's like filmmaking. You know what I mean? That's storytelling. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It tells you everything you need to know, without saying a word.
Okay, so now let's talk about, I think we want to get close to wrapping this up. Let's talk about what is my favorite scene in the movie. Hands down, I think there's in a movie that has many memorable quotes. This is a scene I go back to on YouTube a lot, which is the scene between Chucky and Will. Chucky basically asking Will, hey, so what's up with that girl? And Will's like, she's gone. And he's like, that sucks. So they're just drinking beer right after they're done with work.
Yeah. Yeah, they're at their construction jobs.
And Chucky basically says, he's like, listen, man, if I see you in 20 years and you're coming over to watch the Patriots game together, I'll kill you. I'll fucking kill you. I was like, what do you mean? Fuck, owe it to yourself. You owe it to me.
Mm-hmm.
It fucking mean that what did you think of when you were watching that scene?
Yeah, and I mean, it's really cool to see like a truly selfless friendship because, you know, any other, they could have easily made them like toxic friends. Like, no, you're staying in town. What, you think you're better than us? You're going to go anywhere. But he's like, no, that's a real friend that knows like, I'm going to lose you, which would suck. You know, he's like, but I also really want that for you because I know that means you're going and doing something great for yourself. And as your friend, you know what I mean? I want you to live your best life, even if I'm not included in it.
Yeah,
you
because
know?
he says, like, listen, man, tomorrow, one of my favorite lines that, again, I can't believe was written by guys this young.
Yeah.
Was, tomorrow I'm going to wake up and I'm going to be 50.
Yeah.
Like, that's beautiful, that line. Just because it's like, listen, I know this is my life. Every day is going to be the same. This is my life, and I'm okay with that. I'm all right. But you have something more that all of us would kill ourselves to have what you have.
Yeah.
And you have that. So you owe it to me to do this, you know?
And it finds such a nice balance, too, because, like, obviously it shows Will getting a job, you know, and doing something. You know.
Oh, God, I know. But really quickly, before we get to that stuff, I also love the moment where Chucky's like, you know what the best part of my day is when I come over to pick you up and and it's that walk to your house where for a few seconds there, I hope you won't answer when I knock.
Yeah.
No goodbye, see you later, you're just gone. It's what you were talking about. It's that selfless friendship of not being clingy. He's like, I want the best for you, man. And like, I love how that scene ends where it's Will looking at his friend Chucky, just being like, fuck, man, you felt all that? Like, no words are spoken.
Yeah, he's just like taking that in. He's like,
like,
shit, I didn't know you felt that way at all.
Dude, I've had that moment with you. You've had that moment with me where like, so there's moments where if you're lucky in life to have a solid friendship like that, there's moments every now and then where you'll break the truth to your friend and then the other person will be like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I know good friends can do that for each other. You know what I mean? Like you said, we've definitely done that for each other for sure.
Yeah. And I don't think like I have friends in my life, but I don't think I've ever had someone like you. And I think like the Will and Chucky together, that's like a once in a lifetime thing. Mm-hmm. You don't get that all the time.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a beautiful portrayal of that friendship.
Well, yeah. And the fact that like, you know, Will, like I touched on earlier, that he does end up getting a job, but then he ends up turning that job down because he realized what he really wants, and he wants to go and pursue a new life with Skylar. Hopefully.
So yeah, okay. Will meets up with Sean and is just like, yeah, no, I think I want this job. And it's like, good for you. And then he gives him his number. He's like, I'm gonna be traveling. Decided to finally put all the money I have and lay it on the table, which is, I love that line because it's just like, I'm gonna start up my life again. I'm gonna try again.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's really what matters. It's not, the movie doesn't end in a way of like, you have to get the best, most prestigious job possible, and that's what life's about.
I love that it's not careerist.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not anti-careerist. It's not like he goes and lives on a farm or whatever. You know, again, no shade towards farming. I'm just saying it's just different than what Will does. I'm more just saying, you know, he just pursues what he wants, and that's really what the movie's about. It's about like finding what makes you truly happy and being honest with yourself about that and not conforming to what people in your ears are telling you you're supposed to do.
I know. I mean, again, I feel like I don't want to keep repeating this, even though I have. It's amazing to me that a couple guys in their 20s wrote a movie that was this mature and this wise about it. Because, like, this is a kind of perspective. When you're in your 20s, you have that perspective of, like, I got to get the best career possible. Fuck everything. Got to work hard.
Yeah, you had that fire under your ass.
And this movie's about, like, yes, Will's smart. Yes, he can get a great job. And he realizes that he can. And he realizes that, like, okay, my life doesn't have to be this. But at the end of the day, what's really important to him is the opening up and like loving someone in a way he never has.
Yeah.
Which is the thing that Robin Williams said on the bench to him, which is like, I bet you've never dared to love someone that much, to actually understand them. And at the end, that's Will's arc.
Yeah.
You know? And so, yes.
He pursues a real relationship.
It's the beautiful editing of Chucky going to pick Will up.
Then he just knocks on the door and he's not there.
And it's that, but it's cutting back to Will leaving a note. Mm-hmm.
I gotta see about a girl.
I gotta see about a girl. And then it cuts to Sean being like, son of a bitch stole my line. I mean, what an ending.
And then just cuts to him driving, and right when the credits roll, I was like, oh shit, the movie just ends there. You didn't even, I thought there was going to be a whole extra scene of him going and like hugging her or whatever.
No,
but
you don't
it's like
need it.
He's just experiencing life, and it ends when it needs to end.
No,
Even if he does, let's say she doesn't want to be back with him or whatever, it's about him pursuing what he wants and him actually like, playing his hand, like the way Sean phrases it, like at least I played a hand.
I mean, son of a bitch stole my line is an amazing final moment. Like, it's so good. I don't know how else you would end a movie.
I know. He's like, damn, you're good.
We have no write-in prompts for this one. No one emailed us.
But,
what are you
that's
gonna do?
fine. I was going to say, next time you guys will write to us, I'm sure.
Yeah, but, we're going to keep putting prompts out, basically announcing what movie we're going to do and giving you guys a few days to write us in on how that movie changed you. So you can follow us on Instagram at Movies That Changed Us, and also keep tabs on our YouTube because we also put the prompts up on our community posts. So keep tabs there. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you so much to our patrons for supporting us. And
Supporting us?
powering through. Last but not least, stay nice, dudes.